I literally got involved this 2007, March of 2007. I had saw that David Fincher had made this new movie, The Zodiac, which I knew nothing about the Zodiac. Honestly, I never heard of him, but I knew David Fincher from his movie Seven from 1995, which I had went and seen at the theater like 4 times. This is part of my mental capacity. I like watching things over and over again. So we went and saw this movie, and they were talking about these ciphers that were never solved, the cracked, and all this. And we're on the way home. My fiance, she said, "Look, why don't you take a crack at this cipher? This is like your bread and butter. This is what you're good at." And I said, "No, I'm not interested." So I went home, got comfortable in my recliner, popped it up, turned the TV on. They say, "I know." She had printed it out on the computer and brought me the cipher. Well, 4,527 attempts later that evening, I cracked it, and it gave me a name. So I go online to this large forum for the Zodiac, and I post this name. Everybody's like, "Oh, wow, that's kind of cool." I didn't think much of it. Well, that Sunday, this was Friday, late Friday evening. That Sunday, my phone rings and it said Las Vegas. I answered the phone call, and it was the gentleman, apparently, which I did not know at that time. I thought it was maybe a hoax, but he had called my cell phone. I had no idea how he received my private cell phone. If I wanted to play a game. And upon answering the phone call, I had been using a sports book called Bodog in Las Vegas. So I was automatically assumed that this was this company calling me that I used to use for betting on wagering on football and whatnot. And I declined, and he repeated himself again, a little more strenuous. He said, "Would you like to play a game?" I said, "No." And then his next phrase kind of moved me. He said, "I want to compliment you on cracking my cipher." So at that moment, the hair on my neck stood up. Yeah, you get that holy shit moment, excuse my language, but, and I called over my fiance, put it on speaker so she could hear the conversation. He then, for a fourth time, asked me if I would like to participate in a game with him. And I said, "Look, I want no trouble. I don't want any problems. I'll remove it immediately." And he went on to give me my name, my first name, my full name, my last name, where I worked, my address, where I lived, my fiance's full name, which her name was Angie, but then he actually knew her name was Angelique, which is unique instead of Angela. So I knew he wasn't guessing. And at that point, I said, "Look, I'm done. I'll take it down." And I terminated the call. So I reached out to local law enforcement. They laughed at me. They thought it was quite humorous. They said, "Oh, so Zodiac called you, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." They said, "You want us to go to Vegas and just fingerprint everybody on the strip? I mean, how do you want me to find this guy?" So they didn't take me seriously. So we actually put our house up for sale, went off grid. We sold it within 2 months, went off grid, literally changed our employment, put the house in my fiance's parents' name, so it wasn't in our name. And then for like 6 months, I was paranoid every morning, getting up, making sure that my youngest son, who was 5, that, when he went out to catch the bus, I watched him get off the bus, watched her get in her car for work, sometimes checked on her at work physically. It caused paranoia, and it kind of faded away. So we stopped worrying about it. That was my background. So I kind of went off grid for a while, did not dab into cases. And then some law enforcement and former FBI came to me and he said, "Look, now's the time. You're getting older. You really need to get into this. We can really use your help." And I said, "Okay." So in January of 2018, by blind luck, because I never watched the news. I'm not a TV guy. I'm not a newspaper guy. I turned on the TV. She was up in Illinois taking care of her mother who had major surgery. So she was gone for 5 days. I'm home alone. Just me and the dog. So I turned on the TV, and on the bottom it says Dave Toschi has passed away. He's the famous inspector that had tracked down or attempted to track down the Zodiac. And I said, "You know what? That's really weird," because I worked on that case in 2007 when I got this strange phone call. Now, this is 11 years later. So I call her and I say, "Do you know where the box is? Where my original files?" She said, "Yeah, it's out in the garage." So I go and I locate this box. I dust it off, and there's my original notes from 11 years earlier. So I pull it up, and the name that it gave me, which I can't say here, unfortunately, just yet because of law enforcement. But I Googled it, and it came up as one of the main suspects for the Zodiac. So I was like, okay, so we're onto something here. There's just some legitimacy to this. So I started working on it. I tracked him from the time he was born to the time he passed on, and I was able to identify him in 106 homicides using 107. Sorry, down a recent one. But we're doing this is we created this linguistic database of all of these letters, which we'll touch on later, and it directed me to these case files. Well, in these case files across the nation where he had traveled, I was able to obtain his latent fingerprint at the crime scenes, multiple crime scenes, including audio spectrum analysis and even DNA. So at this point, we've kind of kicked the door in.